Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the mayor's lawyer says he never got training about sexual harassment, and he says the city's liable. We'll tell you what we've learned about the city's policy. Also tonight, a follow-up to a KPBS report about crime at Creek Plaza. Management's made some changes. We'll show you the results.
I'm Peggy Pico. Also ahead, what's next for the Army private convicted of Wikileaks espionage? Then, our exclusive interview with a Catholic priest on an international quest to expand the priesthood to women and married men.
And what happens when you light a biofuel on fire in zero gravity? We'll tell you what some UC San Diego students learned about it. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Mayor Bob Filner's attorney wants city taxpayers to pick up his fee, but city council has refused the request. Filner's attorney argues the city is liable because it failed to provide the mayor with sexual harassment training. Joining us from the KPBS News Center is our senior editor, Mark Sauer. Mark, what's the reasoning behind this request?
Filner's attorney, Harvard Berger, argues in a letter to the city attorney that by law, the city had to provide the mayor with sexual harassment training within 6 months of taking office. Berger says such training was scheduled, but that the trainer for the city unilaterally canceled and never rescheduled with Filner. But KPBS learned today that argument really fails to make sense.
And what did we learn, Mark?
The training is offered to all city employees online. It's up to staff, elected officials included, to block out up to 2 hours, take the training on their own. Mr. Berger appears to me misinformed.
And so has Berger responded to this at all?
We tried contacting him via telephone and email today, but Berger said he won't be commenting to reporters on his letter.
And what else does he say in his letter?
Berger says, quote, many may argue an adult male should not need sexual harassment training, end quote, but he says the fact is Filner never got such training during his decades in office as a congressman either, and that his former communications chief, Irene McCormick Jackson, may never have been harassed and never filed suit had the mayor gotten his training.
KPBS senior editor, Mark Sauer. Mayor Filner has also faced controversy over his recent trip to France. Our media partner, 10 News, found the group paying the trip was not a nonprofit and therefore not allowed to pay more than $440. Today, Filner said he would reimburse the organization of Iranian-American communities more than $9,000. He says the group misrepresented its nonprofit status. So far, the mayor and his staff have refused interview requests from KPBS, but last night his chief of staff, Lee Burdick, spoke with MSNBC about the accusations and keeping the city running in the midst of controversy.
You said that the city attorney is the one who imposed this new policy that the mayor would not meet alone with any female constituents. The fact is, the mayor and I together developed that policy. We felt that it was a reasonable and prudent business practice in light of the allegations that were being leveled against him. And we put forth that policy because we felt it protected both the mayor and the citizens of San Diego, ensuring them that city business was being conducted with the highest level of integrity.
Mayor Bob Filner's chief of staff, Lee Burdick, speaking last night on MSNBC. Burdick also said she and Filner devised the plan forbidding him to meet with women privately. However, KPBS has obtained a letter from Filner's lawyer to City Attorney Jan Goldsmith saying Goldsmith requested the mayor to stop the meetings. Goldsmith is scheduled to join us tomorrow night here on Evening Edition. We have the letter and much more coverage of the controversy surrounding the mayor in a special section on our website called The Filner Files. You can find it at kpbs.org/news/Filner. President Obama will visit Camp Pendleton in Oceanside next week. The trip is scheduled for Wednesday. The White House says he will visit with troops and their families to thank them for their service to the nation. The defense secretary says federal budget cuts could force the Pentagon to mothball 3 aircraft carriers and further reduce the Army and Marine Corps ranks. Chuck Hagel laid out a worst-case scenario today for the next decade, eliminating 3 carriers, cutting 100,000 soldiers from the Army and 32,000 more Marines. The Air Force could also lose 5 combat air squadrons. Hagel says another option would be to cancel modernization programs. He's been speaking out against defense cuts as Congress wrangles over spending bills. The sentencing of Army Private Bradley Manning began today. He was found guilty of espionage charges for leaking thousands of classified documents to Wikileaks. Peggy Pico has this update on the case.
Army Private First Class Bradley Manning pled and was found guilty of multiple counts of espionage. But he was not found guilty of the most serious charge, aiding the enemy, which could have meant life in prison. 20 witnesses are expected to testify during the sentencing phase of his trial. Here with details on the implications of that trial is military law attorney Gary Barthel. Gary, welcome.
Thank you.
Manning acknowledged he was giving Wikileaks more than 700,000 documents, classified information, reports, and a video. Why wasn't that enough, or why didn't prosecutors say that they could prove he was guilty in aiding the enemy?
The reason is because in the offense of aiding the enemy, the government has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had the knowledge that the information that he was releasing was going into the hands of the enemy. And according to Manning, that was never his intent. His intent was to provide this information out to a website dump site, and he had no intention of harming anybody, or it wasn't his intent that that information end up in the hands of the enemy.
So there wasn't enough evidence to prove
Correct.
To prove that. He was found guilty in 17 of the 22 espionage charges.
That's correct.
And he had pled guilty to those. So would this really be considered sort of a win for the government, even because he already admitted to doing that?
Yeah, he pled guilty to 10 of the charges, and some of those charges were accepted and substituted. He didn't plead to all of the charges as they were originally pled. But some of the charges he did plead to included 1 espionage charge, and for espionage, the government only had to prove that he had some reasonable belief that that the documents he was releasing could end up in the hands.
Okay, so
that's
just
the
plausibility there.
Right.
What about the thinking behind having a judge trial? Of course, this is in a military court versus a jury of his peers.
Well, I think in this case, he definitely was entitled to a jury trial, but I think the defense made the right choice in going with the judge alone version of the trial in this case. I think if Manning had gone with a jury trial, I think a jury of his peers may, number one, they don't have the same experience and exposure to criminal cases that the judge does. But two, I think they would probably be more angered by what he did, and
maybe more emotional. It might be
more emotional. They may have known people who have died in action during the war, and although that they're not supposed to carry those feelings in, sometimes it's hard to separate those feelings. And I think he could have got a harsher sentence and maybe even a different verdict if he had gone with a jury.
Now, the verdict is just the first in this process, in this trial, this military trial. What's the possible outcomes of these sentencing hearings? What happens?
With regard to the sentencing hearing is a separate phase of the trial. It's set up pretty much like the first phase, the fact-finding phase of the trial. Each side presents evidence. It's very adversarial. The prosecution will present evidence likely to show the aggravation and the damage that was done by the release of these documents. The defense, on the other hand, is going to present evidence that is going to tend to humanize Manning. They're going to show evidence that, hey, he's young, he's inexperienced, his intent all along was never that anybody be harmed as a result of his releasing these documents.
How much time does he face?
Right now he's looking at 136 years in prison, but he's also looking at a dishonorable discharge, reduction to the lowest grade, and forfeitures of pay, and possibly fines.
How is Manning's trial different from the government's pursuing the Edward Snowden, a former CIA agent who released classified information about NSA? How are those two different?
Well, one, Snowden would be tried in a federal district court, and in federal district court you have sentencing guidelines. Manning is being tried in a military court, and there are no sentencing guidelines with the military system. And so whatever evidence is presented at the sentencing phase of the trial is the evidence that the judge is going to rely on when she issues her sentence.
So a couple differences there. How do you think these trials will impact military whistleblower in the future?
Well, I'm not sure that this really amounts to a whistleblower case. The military has systems in place so that if people have issues with whatever is going on, they can request mass up the chain of command, vent those issues, and try to get those issues resolved. That wasn't done in this case. Like Snowden, Manning had a personal agenda. For whatever reason,
yeah, which is why I use that term, because
his
supporters say that, but you're right, not a correct term. Well, I want to let folks know there's a whole lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Military law attorney Gary Barthel, thanks so much.
Thank you.
A few weeks ago, we told you about a crime problem near Creek Plaza in San Diego. Some neighbors complained security guards weren't doing enough to stop loitering and drug dealing in front of a Starbucks and a Food for Less. Now, security has been beefed up with big results. KPBS reporter Claire Traegerser with this update.
Community organizer Barry Pollard sits in front of the Market Creek Starbucks and looks around. Children are playing and people are chatting and sipping coffee. He says the scene wasn't so quiet just a few weeks ago, but since then the nonprofit Jacob Center, which runs the plaza, has added security guards.
It has been different as night and day. The adjustments that they made was very, very obvious. It had an immediate impact. You could just look at the Starbucks now, and more customers are here. There's no loud music in the parking lots. And then even I noticed when I walked around earlier in the week, there's actually people that are cleaning up the parking lot.
Renee Novo, a spokeswoman for the Jacob Center, says they have boosted their number of on-call security guards to patrol the plaza by bringing in staff from a private security firm.
When you look around, I'm looking at two now, and I've seen that pattern, that there's the yellow shirt, the new security, and then there's the maroon shirt, the old ambassadors. So it's not a matter of displacing anyone at this point. It's just a matter of maybe some more training and maybe certainly more visibility.
A trolley station next to the plaza may also attract crime by giving people an easy way in and out. So the Jacob Center is working with the Metropolitan Transit System to ensure its security is also getting the job done. But more security in the plaza could push criminals into the surrounding neighborhoods, Pollard says. And that's where his Neighborhood Watch Group comes in.
Organizing the different neighborhoods around Market Creek Plaza, because the folks that used to be here, they're going to have to go somewhere else. And it's going to be in the outer lying communities.
Pollard hopes that by working with the police and Market Creek, his neighborhood can be safe once and for all. Claire Traegerser, KPBS News.
San Diego International Airport is putting the finishing touches on a $1 billion makeover. It's the largest project in Lindbergh Field's 80-year history. We got a peek at a new shopping area opening soon in Terminal 2.
1, 2, 3.
With the snip of a giant pair of golden scissors, San Diego International opens its first ever spa at the airport, where passengers can now get a massage or a mani-and-pedi to ease the tension of travel. Bella Bowens with the airport authority says this was a very popular request.
And we spent a lot of time doing surveys and talking to our customers about what they wanted, and things like the spa experience is one of the things that we kept hearing about.
Bowen says they've had the same concession stands for 25 years and it was time for some sprucing up. So over the next few months, passengers at Terminal 2 will have access to a sharper image store full of gadgets, a store for music accessories and headphones, and a taste of Old Town San Diego featuring a market with plenty of tourist items to take home.
There will be 87 stores in the airport once all of the program is completed,
including a new food court featuring a San Diego-based company, Jack in the Box, as well as Panda Express and California Pizza Kitchen. They've also added 10 new gates to reduce passenger waits and enhanced curbside check-in. With nearly 17 million passengers a year and growing, Lindbergh Field is finally starting to look more like
and international airport.
And the four-year makeover at Terminal 2 should be completed by next spring. Tomorrow night on Evening Edition, we'll give you a preview of new art you can expect to see around the airport. In other news tonight, Pope Francis made headlines last week when he asked, "Who am I to judge regarding gays?" It's a change from the position of previous popes. But so far, Francis says there will be no change to let women become priests. Tonight, Peggy Pico talks with an Australian priest who says more change is needed. He's visiting San Diego on a national tour to talk about his, quote, call to disobedience.
Father Helmut Schuller is on a 15-city tour across the U.S. called the Catholic Tipping Point. His goal to transform the church to allow divorced couples to receive sacraments and accept women and married men into the priesthood. Father Schuller, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, while touring Brazil this week, before we get started on this, Pope Francis said, quote, "Who am I to judge gay people?" and added that gays shouldn't be marginalized. What is your reaction to his statements?
I think it's an interesting opener, but we have to get more. That means not only mercy and respect, but also inclusion, and also appreciating what these people are trying to build up with their relationships and their partnerships on the base of our Christian thinking and teaching. And so I think inclusion will be the target.
Okay. You're touring the U.S. now for a different reason, as part of the Austrian priest initiative called the Catholic Tipping Point, as we had said. What do you hope to accomplish during this tour?
Yes, connections, international connections. We are now at an international level. We started in Austria with a priest initiative, and now we are contacted from priests all over the world to do something together, connections with the church reform movements in this country. And yes, the exchanging of experiences, of ideas, how could we get this change from the base of the church?
Well, I understand that you know, your key target points are to get women to be able to be ordained as priests. Is that correct? And also for married men. Why? Why do you want to include them?
I think there are a lot of gifted people in this church, men and women. And it's not good to exclude them principally, because they are gifts for the church. On the other hand, we have a shortage of leaders for our communities, parish communities in Austria, in Europe, but also in the United States, are going to become clustered and merged, and we are losing touch with the people. Our pastoral work is more and more without any contacts. And we need these gifted people for this ministry. It's really important, and therefore we are asking for this opening.
And it may be a little bit of an opening, because some religious scholars say there's not a lot of theological support to exclude women from the priesthood. How would you respond to that? Is there some wiggle room here?
I think they are right, because I think the central question is that we have in our message in the Bible, which we want to announce, that man and woman are together, image of God in this world. That means that fact has to be represented in the ministerial structures of this church. Therefore, I think it's a principal opening necessary, and out of the base of theology, I think there is no problem with it. Also out of the base of the question of tradition, because we now are knowing much more about the origins of our church, when women were really involved in leading ministry. And tradition is a very weak argument, because if the church really only wants to do what Jesus has done, and not to do what he has not done, the church will change radically.
Let's move us forward. You're not the average reformer. You've served in very public and powerful roles, including under the Austrian cardinal. Has this helped you gain support for this sort of movement you're working on with your parishioners?
I'm sure the Austrians are knowing me, my work for Caritas before, then as Vicar General, and so I think that's a very great advantage. But also this standing together in Austria, these 430 priests who will not leave alone one another, I think that's a very important.
How about here in the U.S.? How's your message been received so far?
surprisingly open, and it needs only some seconds at the beginning of the conversation, and we are at the same point, because the questions are present in all countries of this church.
Except in Boston, I understand. What happened in Boston?
That was the point of view of the Cardinal O'Malley, but I think also in Boston a lot of people of this church are agreeing with us.
Do you consider any of this doctrine, any of the things you're trying to make changes, infallible doctrines with the church?
I don't think so. Also the question with the women in priesthood,
right?
Because there should be a special quality for these decisions, the bishops to get involved before, and they didn't.
Okay.
So we have very fragile ground for it.
Well, I want to let people know they can learn a lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Father Schuller, thanks very much again for talking
Thank
with
you
us.
for being invited.
A team of UC San Diego undergrads are back on solid ground tonight after experiencing what it feels like to float in space. They're back from NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, where they had a chance to light things up, or rather on fire, in a weightless environment. KPBS science and technology reporter David Wagner has the story.
Now,
try setting fire to biofuel on a commercial flight and you'd probably get taken in by Homeland Security. But try the same thing on a jet simulating the weightlessness of space, and it's called science.
I'm very shocked, actually, that they let us do this. And every time I've talked to anyone, they've always said, like, you're actually blowing something up on a plane. Like, what are you doing?
Sam Avery led a team of UCSD engineering majors who wanted to see how biofuels burn when gravity is taken out of the equation. They got to pull off their firebug study thanks to NASA's Microgravity University. NASA chose 7 undergrad teams to conduct research on a microgravity flight earlier this month. Avery and his teammates built their experiment on the research of UCSD professor Foreman Williams. They say taking his work into microgravity could one day help improve fire extinguishers on the International Space Station. And it could have applications here on Earth, too.
Because then you can go back to, say, an engine on the ground that uses biofuels, and then you can improve how it burns biofuels and improve efficiency.
The UCSD microgravity team had to build a triple-contained box in order to convince NASA that their combustible experiment was safe.
This was completely programmed, and the structure was built by undergraduate students.
Nico Montoya explains how their burn chamber works.
So the needle's coming in to push a droplet onto the cross fiber. So then we'll drop down another motor to drop a spark on it, and it'll ignite. Fire. There it is.
All this had to happen in less than 20 seconds, the duration of each weightless period on their microgravity flight. Avery and 2 other UCSD students boarded a jet that soars and dives through a series of steep arcs, kind of like a microgravity roller coaster. Avery says that at first, the weightlessness feels exactly like the peak of an amusement park ride. But then,
the moment you're gone from that peak, it's very different. Wherever you pushed off from, you will keep going in that direction no matter what you do. You can spin yourself, but you'll just keep floating until you hit something.
When the jet reached the lowest point in its descent, passengers would go through a period of double gravity.
You're just pressed down and you can feel your face droop and everything like that. I did a sit-up in it, and it's really hard.
Just like roller coasters, these flights can give some passengers a mean bout of motion sickness. After all, Vomit Comet is the jet's unofficial nickname. Denisha Kenyon, one of the 3 UCSD flyers, succumbed to nausea.
Our friend was back there just vomiting into a bag.
But even illness could not prevent the intrepid UCSD team from successfully carrying out its biofuel burn. Once they started floating, they ignited a droplet of butanol inside their specially designed box and filmed the results.
Being able to ignite that flame and being able to see the effects of microgravity on the flame we're combusting, on the fuel, that was definitely a success.
Avery says experiencing microgravity was awesome, but he's also glad he and his teammates got to do some serious work up there. Just like they predicted, the flame changed shape without gravity to weigh it down.
The flame expands dramatically and becomes more of a perfect sphere. So it just has this large globule shape, And if there's any flow going across the flame, then it creates a kind of like a teardrop, but more of just like a morphing blob that just kind of moves around with any movement of gravity.
Poor weather prevented them from taking a second flight, but the team is already hoping to return to NASA's Microgravity University for more weightless experiments next year. David Wagner, KPBS News.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next news hour, a Senate hearing examines the secret court charged with ruling on government surveillance. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
The Weather Service is still warning of strong rip currents along our coast. At the beaches, temperatures mostly in the low 70s into the weekend. Low 80s for the inland valleys and for the mountains, too. Triple-digit heat for the desert. You can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Good night.